How will the St. Louis Cardinals replace former NL MVP Paul Goldschmidt at first base? Today, we look at some of the options that could be available. This is Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Hafford, and I'm a national radio sports anchor, born and raised in the Lou, and a lifetime Cardinals fan. And I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. You can follow me on Twitter, X at JD Sports Radio, and follow the podcast at LO_Cardinals. I do want to thank those of you who make Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube as well. This is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving the best fans in baseball all of the info about the birds on the bat. Today's episode is being brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. You can start this season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now, the Cardinals' reset off the field has already begun, right? But the reset on the field is something that hasn't really gotten underway yet, outside of the reporting that the team is indeed going to move on from first baseman and former NL MVP Paul Goldschmidt. Now, Goldie just had the worst season of his career in the final year of his contract. So it only makes sense to let the 37-year-old first baseman, who reportedly does want to continue his career, he's not trying to retire or anything, to go ahead and try to see if he can find the fountain of youth someplace else while the Cardinals are in this rebuild, reset situation. It's also why you're going to continue to hear about other high-priced veterans with no trade clauses like Nolan Arenado, Sonny Gray, and Wilson Contreras, that you'll hear rumors about them getting moved. And maybe they all three decide that, hey, we don't want to be around for this. We'll waive our trade clauses and get out of your hair. We'll do that. These guys want to go win a World Series ring with another team who is closer to being a World Series caliber team than the Cardinals will be here in the near future. So that's an option that I'm sure they're thinking about. You know, we saw stuff over the weekend that Nolan Arenado on Twitter, and I don't know how much, this is factual yet, but there was a big thing about Nolan Arenado saying he's agreed to waive the no trade clause and is okay with getting traded. We haven't heard any reporting from anybody else on that yet, so I don't want to say that that's exactly what has happened, but it wouldn't shock me. Would it shock you? Can you blame any of them? The bummer about it all is that, all three of those guys, they wanted to be Cardinals. They wanted to be in St. Louis. They wanted to be a part of the tradition and the history, and they were attracted to the consistency of winning that the Cardinals normally did. They were always competing for a playoff spot, always competing for a division title. But the last 2 years have not been what any of these guys thought they signed up for. Nato has had some good years with the team. They've reached the playoffs a few times. He could have opted out and probably wishes he did now if he knew where this franchise was going. But he stayed loyal and said, no, I want to be in St. Louis. This is where I want to be. This is where I want to win. And that sucks. Contreras wanted to be a Cardinal. Remember, he told that wonderful story about him trying on a Cardinals jersey and asking his wife how he looked in it. Really cool story, but the team is below 500 since he got here. Sonny signs that 3-year deal with the option for the 4th year because he wanted to be close to his home in Nashville. And he just had a real appreciation for the organization, for the city, for the fans, and had grown fond of them while playing for other teams over the years. And now we're in a situation where these guys are going to have a choice whether they want to move on and go somewhere else or stick around to see if they can be a part of this reset. And had things gone better for Paul Goldschmidt, perhaps he would have gotten an extension. It seemed like that was going to be a logical move that the team would have made. And, they would have had him until he probably retired. It was probably something they discussed. We'd like for you to end your career wearing a Cardinal uniform. But it was just an ugly season for Goldie. And he's a likely future Hall of Famer. He's probably going to get a red jacket one day and be a Cardinals Hall of Famer for sure. But back-to-back declining seasons since winning that NL MVP put you in a spot where it's like, oh, man, we got to turn the page. We're trying to cut some costs here. We're trying to do better with our development, and we're going to rely on some of the younger guys a little bit more. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to keep a guy who in the last 2 years has been going in the wrong direction. So how do you replace somebody like Goldie, though? That's the real question, right? Because as bad as he was for Paul Goldschmidt standards, it's not like he was the biggest piece of crap first baseman in the league or something, He just wasn't what we're used to seeing out of Paul Goldschmidt. His veteran presence obviously is a big deal. His Gold Glove-worthy defense, which I think it's overlooked a lot. His normally clutch bat in the middle of the lineup, something that the Cardinals relied on for a few years here. The Diamondbacks were able to move on from Goldie because they had Christian Walker. They plugged him right in, and that worked out great for Arizona. He is ironically also set to become a free agent this offseason. So today, we're going to run down some of the possibilities, both internal and external, to replace Paul Goldschmidt. We'll do that next on Locked On Cardinals. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports. They've made it accessible to everybody is what they've really done here. What you do, in case you haven't tried PrizePicks yet, is you just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Okay? Run your game all season long with PrizePicks. They make it very easy for you. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. The only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, which is great. So your lineup stay in play, even if one of your players gets injured. My guy Jordan Love just got hurt for the Packers on Sunday. So if your player leaves in the first half, which he didn't, stuck around in the second, but if he leaves in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks keeps your lineup live. It's the best place to get real money sports action. You can join over 10 million users and sign up today. Play alongside guys like Drewski, Joe Budden, and MMA champ Sean O'Malley. You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community each and every week. It's the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going to go off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds, then turn your sports knowledge into real money all season long on PrizePicks. So download the app today if you haven't already. Use that code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app, use the code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. You've got, Giants and Steelers football-wise tonight. You've also got the World Series going on between the Dodgers and the Yankees. Some fun stuff to work with PrizePicks on. So make sure you do that. PrizePicks, run your game. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. You can leave your comments on YouTube as well as on Twitter X anytime you want. Your feedback always welcome and encouraged. We just had Thomas Govain from RedbirdRants.com on the show this past week, and he mentioned that he was going to be writing about this very subject this week. So I want to take a look at what his list is and see what the best course of action for the Cardinals might be to replace someone as good as Goldie has been during his tenure in a Cardinals uniform. Now, the first names I want to start with are names that I've brought up on multiple occasions, so we don't have to go super in-depth on these guys. But that is the combination of Alec Burleson and Luken Baker. Burley, as much as we love him and appreciate his efforts on the field and in the outfield more specifically, he doesn't really cover enough ground out there to be an outfielder full-time. There's some guys that you can get away with it because they're, hitting 35, 40 home runs and stuff. And you're like, all right, I'm willing to live with the lack of defense just to have his bat in the lineup. Burleson had a nice bat, but, it's not that good where you're like, all right, he has to be there. So especially when he's got the ability to play another position like first base where his lack of speed wouldn't be that much of an issue. He's appeared in 38 games at first base, so he's got some experience there. Last year, he was having that tremendous season until September, and that's when the production just dropped off a cliff. Could be a number of reasons why that happened. Obviously, at the end of a season and at the end of the grind, some of these guys who haven't played in those many games very much yet, they wear down. They get exhausted. Mason Wynn this past year, wore down. You saw the numbers start dipping at the end of the year because they're tired. We forget that Alec Burleson, it seems like, he's been in the league 3 or 4 years already. That's only his second year last year. In his final 38 games, though, he hit 0 home runs, had just 8 RBIs with an OPS of 601. The previous 114 games, he was hitting 278 with 21 dingers, 70 ribbies, and an OPS of 776. So it's also night and day. I want to point this out when it comes to hitting righties and lefties. His splits are huge. Righties, 292, 18 bombs, 66 ribbies, the OPS, 805. Then lefties, it plummets to 196, 3 home runs, 12 ribbies, and a 514 OPS. So that is where our guy Luken Baker comes into play. There he is, the big Ken doll himself. Luken hits lefties much better than righties. At least he did last year. Let's put it that way. I don't really know what his split were in the minor leagues, but we know he can hit lefties pretty well. That's the thing. And after getting called up last year, he had 278, 2 home runs and 7 RBIs against lefties, and hit just 91. No home runs, 3 RBIs against righties. The strikeouts were way up against the righties as compared to the lefties. So it makes sense that if you were going to go with these two guys as a combination of filling that first base role, that they would be in a platoon situation. You would rotate them going, depending on who's, you're facing a righty, you're facing a lefty, which one gets the start. And when we're talking about these cost-cutting days, the fact that neither of them even made $1 million last year doesn't hurt. The combination of their contracts was under $2 million total. So that, you got to think about it now, because this is not a situation where the Cardinals are going to want to spend a whole lot of money to fill this role. And this seems like an obvious route to go. Another internal name that people have brought up is Jordan Walker. And on the surface, I feel like it makes sense, considering how rough it's been for Jordan in the outfield over the last 2 seasons. Mind you, never played outfield until the last 2 years. He's got this cannon for an arm out there, which, watching him out there this year, the other teams know that, and they respect it. He runs extremely well for a man his size, but the eye test just kind of tells you that he doesn't really belong out there. He still doesn't look comfortable out there. Although you'll see some pretty cool plays because he's so athletic and makes them, but you see him misjudge a lot of plays. And, if you moved him to first base, there are some positives there. He'd be a nice target. As somebody who played on the infield in my playing days, having a massive first baseman over there to throw to is pretty darn awesome. 6'6" frame, and he's still growing. He came up playing third base, so obviously he knows how to field a ground ball. So I'd assume he could pull off playing that position, but he'd be starting from scratch, learning how to hold runners on and make picks over at first base and tagging, runners. And, there's a lot goes on to playing first base than you think. So, and he would have to learn all that. So you'd be starting from scratch again, just like he was in the outfield, which means there's going to certainly be some growing pains for that. I'm still of the belief that he could be a capable outfielder. I haven't given up on that just yet. And considering where the organization is, I probably just keep him in right field and roll with Baker and Burley at first. But nonetheless, it's also a possibility for the Cardinals. Another internal name to think about, Ivan Herrera. If you have to move him to first base to keep his bat in the lineup, that's also another option. I think we all can agree that the bat plays at the major league level. What he's doing behind the plate, it's been a little tough. Didn't have a whole lot of success throwing runners out. Nobody really did for the Cardinals this past year. But also the defensively, Pedro Pages seems to be a better fit behind the plate. And as far as calling games, you could tell that the Cardinals felt that Pedro called a better game than Ivan Herrera did. And maybe the pitchers were more comfortable with Pages behind the plate. Not that he can't work on it. If only we had some former catcher around to help these young catchers. Does anybody know anybody? You ever heard of a guy that used to play with us, maybe that could help us out? I wonder if we can get him on the horn. Anyway, As far as external options, let's just go ahead and squash the Pete Alonso fairy tale. As fun as it might be to have the polar bear come over into a Cardinals uniform, the dude is going to get paid big time. All right, he's going to make a massive fortune this offseason. The Cardinals are not looking to add expensive free agents this year, so it's not going to happen. So I just stop. It's not going to go down. Christian Walker, who replaced Paul Goldschmidt in Arizona, will also likely get a handsome reward for what he did with the Diamondbacks. He's obviously got a powerful bat. He's got the Gold Glove defense. Whether he ends up with the Diamondbacks or someone else, it's another guy that I think is going to get paid enough where it's not even something that's in the realm of possibilities with the St. Louis Cardinals. Thomas brings up another guy that, honestly, I would kill to have at first base for the Cardinals. I would kill, because it's something that I have said about this team. As much as Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado have been great players, is there a lot of star power with them? No. You're like, yeah, no, they're really good, but it's not somebody that people are like, dude, I got to see this Nolan Arenado at bat. Like, who's going to flip the channel to go do it like you would for, an Aaron Judge or a Juan Soto or a Shohei Ohtani? Not that this guy is that level, but he's pretty close. He's pretty close. He's got star power. He's got charisma. He'd be another young building block and immediately become the face of the franchise if they traded for him. And that is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. from the Toronto Blue Jays, a guy that I've been a huge fan of since he came up. And it would be incredible. Back in the past when we were talking about acquiring guys to be Cardinals, and like when Bryce Harper became a free agent, I'm like, dude, you would get all of the juice that Bryce Harper brings to your team, and he'd be the face of your franchise, and you'd have this superstar in St. Louis. And it didn't happen. The Juan Soto deal, like when they were talking about trading for him, I was like, dude, this would be your face. And like, there's more to it than just what goes on the field. And, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. would fill that nicely. Here's what Thomas had to say about him, because he doesn't think it's going to happen. Neither do I. Let me put that out there, though. I'm not expecting them to make a trade for Vladimir Guerrero Jr., but Thomas gives some good reasons why this is probably not going to happen. He said, first, the Blue Jays are rumored to be interested in working on a long-term extension with their all-star. Second, Guerrero would cost a lot of prospect capital, something the Cardinals are intent on holding on to. Finally, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. could hit $30 million in arbitration next year. If it's possible, St. Louis trades Ryan Helsley with his paltry $6.9 million projected salary. Don't even think they'll take on $30 million in arbitration. Now, what I say about this is that some guys are worth that type of money. I believe Vladimir Guerrero Jr. would be somebody like that. That bat is incredible. He cannot play defense at all. He's very bad over at first base, which is something you got to think about. But, geez, I mean, imagine that bat in the middle of your lineup for the next 6-7 years. But it would cost so much that the way things are with the Cardinals right now, they're not prepared to start making a move like that. At least it doesn't seem to be. Like when we talked to Jeff Jones last week, and he's like, a reminder, the Cardinals can buy anybody they want if they wanted to. They're choosing not to. So if they felt like they could get their hands on Vladdy, maybe that's something they would think about. But it's probably not going to happen. Like I said, it would be fun seeing him swing in the Lumber and Bush Stadium, but it's a pipe dream. It's a pipe dream. Let's be honest. So let's move on to some more realistic options. We'll do that next here on Locked On Cardinals. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, and they do it all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Yesterday, I decided right before the games, I was like, ooh, and I was on the FanDuel app, and I'm looking at things, and I'm thinking about anytime touchdowns. And I was, scouring the internet, and I was like, all right, here's some good ones. Josh Jacobs. Who else did I go with? It was Josh Jacobs. It was Sam Laporta, And who's the third one I was thinking about? Was it Derrick Henry? Anyway, those were the ones I was considering, and I was like, ding, 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 and I put them in, and then I also went with, who was the other one I went with? Anyway, the point being, though, I lost because my hunch, the last one that I picked, it didn't work out. It didn't work out for me, unfortunately. I think it was it Kenneth Walker for the Seahawks? I think that's what I went with. But anyway, it didn't work out for me. I should have stopped when I was ahead on the first three because that would have worked. But you can do that, and hopefully things will work out better for you. So visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every aspect of the World Series. We got Game 3 tonight in the Bronx. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So he goes into, we'll talk about Thomas Covain in his article at redbirdrant.com. He brings up a lot of AL East guys in this situation because there's a plethora of first basemen over there. So Ryan O'Hearn from the Baltimore Orioles is a guy that he brings up on the list, and he's going to get to two of these guys for Baltimore. He says O'Hearn is coming off one of the best years of his career in 2024. Over his career, he's got a slash line of 244, 309, 417, OPS plus of exactly 100. Has been a league average hitter through 7 seasons. What could complicate O'Hearn's free agency is the club option worth $8 million that is attached to his 2025 contract. Considering the free agent first base market, O'Hearn is the third best option. That figure is likely below his market value, meaning the Orioles will likely accept the option and trade their other first base option. That person happens to be next on the list here, and that's Ryan Mountcastle. Thomas says this about Mountcastle, who's 27 years old, says he's not a free agent until 2026, so he has 2 more years of team control, which obviously we like. He made $4.137 million last year through arbitration and is projected to see around $6.6 million this year, according to MLB trade rumors. That would make him significantly cheaper than Paul Goldschmidt, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Pete Alonso, and others on this list. Has a career 265, 316, 450 slash line with 90 home runs in just over 4 seasons. Mountcastle has seen some injuries limit him, so he has yet to eclipse 145 games in a season. He's only exceeded 600 plate appearances once in his career. The Orioles could trade Mountcastle to save some money, but they don't have a viable first base option behind him if Ryan O'Hearn's option is declined. O'Hearn splits also make it difficult to roll him out there every day. So the Orioles, what we're trying to say here is that they have some decisions to make is what we're trying to tell you. And we'll see what direction they go into. But those 2 guys could be options. Okay. And that's what we're pointing out here today. We're not saying this is the guy. They got to go get this guy. That's not what we're saying here. What I'm saying is that they're options. This is just what is going to be possibly available this offseason for the Cardinals to fill that role if they decide to go outside of their own internal options who we listed above. He stays in the American League East, and brings up the Rays' Yandy Diaz, who, when you go look at the numbers, you're kind of like, he's all right. This is what Thomas says about Yandy. He's been an above-average offensive first baseman with a penchant for getting on base. He's also quite affordable with a meager $8 million total to his name for 2025. 33 years old, bats from the right side, and he's at his best when he hits for average. While the home runs won't blow anyone away, he has just 75 total and over 3,000 plate appearances. Having someone you can trust to get on base as often as Diaz does bodes well for the lineup. Says he's inexpensive for 2025. Club option worth $12 million in 2026. If the Cardinals are unhappy with his performance after this next year, they could simply decline his option and walk away. The Cardinals would have to make a trade. Obviously, he is under contract with the Rays right now, so you would have to make a deal with Tampa Bay again, which I know makes a lot of people nervous in Cardinal Nation. I understand that, but if you're just trying to fill the gap for a couple of years, and then worry about first base at some other time. It's something to look at. It's something to at least think about, and then just be prepared that whoever they trade to Tampa Bay will eventually be a playoff god. Just book it. That's what the Cardinals are doing right now. Go see Tommy Edman. Anyway, so that's a guy. The next name, kind of an interesting one. Again, he stays in the American League East on this one. I feel like this one's kind of a long shot, but it is the Red Sox, Triston Casas. If the Sox did move him, it's going to take a lot to get him. Like, I know he had an injury-riddled season this year. So the numbers obviously aren't there, but he was somebody that looked like he had some star potential coming into the season. Thomas even brings up some of the names. He's like, if you make a trade with the Red Sox for him, and he kind of brings up the Chaim Bloom connection here and how he was around when Casas was making his way up the ladders in the Boston organization. But he said a combination of names made up of probably Ryan Helsley, Tink Hens, Quinn Matthews, and Chase Davis is what it would take to pull Casas from the Boston Red Sox. So if that is the case, hell no. I'm not making a deal like that. Now, if you got to trade Helsley, I'm starting to lean more towards that because it seems like it's a possibility that they're not going to invest in him as their closer because of where they are as an organization. They don't want to pay somebody that amount of money, and they're probably going to be able to fetch something decent in return for him, since he's arguably the top closer in the National League at the moment and is 1-2 with Class A from the Cleveland Guardians this past year. So he was outstanding. So his worth and what you can get back for him, it's never been higher than where Ryan Helsley is right now. So again, I kind of understand the business side of it. If you don't want to pay him, and this is the time that you would ship him to get the best possible package in return. So if you got to move him to get somebody to become your first baseman, then so be it. But there is no way for an organization that has been starved with trying to find pitching prospects to do well at the major league level that you are trading Tink Hens or Quinn Matthews. You are not even, if that's what they're asking for, you immediately hang up the phone and you unplug it and you throw it. You do not touch those guys. Don't you dare. And I'm not thrilled about ever moving first round pick Chase Davis either. And I know he's, he had a much better year this second year. And but that swing, if you've never seen Chase Davis taking it bat or swing, it's gorgeous. And you can just see why you wanted this guy in the first round. And I wouldn't want to move on from him. I know outfielders, it seems like, we can find them all the time, but I'm not excited about moving on from him either just yet. So that is the list. Those are the guys that he's got at redbirdrans.com. Again, when the offseason fully begins after the World Series, you'll see more movement. You'll see people declining options and whatnot. So the pool of people that you might be able to bring in from outside of the organization, it'll be a little more clear of what's available. But that's kind of the names you're looking at right now to fill this role. My dream scenario obviously would be Vladimir Guerrero Jr. That would be incredible. I would definitely take him over Pete Alonso if I could. But again, dream scenario. Realistic external option. I guess I'm going to go with O'Hearn from the Orioles just because of his age and the control that you still have with him. But I'm going to stick with what I've been saying so far this offseason is that I believe that they're going to try to solve this internally with some sort of combination of Alec Burleson, Lucan Baker, Ivan Herrera, maybe even Wilson Contreras. These are things that we'll see if they end up doing it or not. Heck, if Nada was still here and Donovan needs to play second more, what about Nolan Gorman? Can we teach him to play first base? That could be something too. I don't know. Just spitballing. Just spitballing. Leave me your thoughts and comments down below. Which way do you want the Cardinals to go? You got to make the decision. You got to be Chaim Bloom. You got to be John Mozeliak right now. Give me your dream scenario. Give me your external scenario. Like what's your option? What's your choice there? And then let me know if you just think it's all crap and it's they're just going to go the cheapest route, the internal route, and see if they can get by with the guys they already have in their organization. That's what I need from you, and then we can discuss it in a future episode. So, is there someone else we're forgetting that we should be looking at? Do you have a better option than any of these guys that we've brought up? So, let me know. Let me know what you guys got. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't already, give us a follow on Twitter X at @LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio. Like, subscribe on YouTube to help our channel and love for the Cardinals grow. You guys are the best fans in baseball for a reason. I will see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.